doing some blueberry tea paper dyeing today. Hey, it's Care. Welcome to my take at the lake. So a number of viewers have mentioned they like that I keep it real. And I just want to show you how real it is around here. Oftentimes when I'm crafting, it's because I'm putting something off. Right now I'm editing a book. I was working on a new project. This is for paper dyeing. I'm still having morning coffee. There's my blueberry tea. I have dirty dishes in the sink. I have stuff from lunch to put away. And I'm going to dye some paper. All is not perfect in my world. Everything in the world isn't done and I have all the time in the world to craft. That's just not my reality. And I wanted to share that with you because I think a lot of us put it off until we have time. And we never have time. There's always grass to be cut, snow to be blowed, dishes to be done, etc., etc. So I stopped what I'm doing because I, again, got a wild hair. I need to make some blueberry dye paper right now. So that's what we're going to do. So I put this in the microwave, about that much water. I put 4 tea bags in there of this True Blueberry Celestial Seasonings Herbal Tea. Oh, it smells like heaven. It smells like blueberry. It smells fabulous. And I read a lot of the reviews and they all said, oh, it's wonderful. It tastes just like blueberries. It's so sweet and so yummy. And it's not to my taste. I had another one from Walmart. I think it was Yogi brand and it was blueberry sage. And that blueberry was super sweet. But it was overpowered by the sage, which tasted like sage. So I'm still on the hunt for a decent blueberry tea. But I got this from Walmart because I couldn't find it local, not Walmart, Amazon, because I couldn't find it locally. And you had to buy 2 boxes. And I figured, I love blueberry. It's going to be wonderful. They all said it was wonderful. It is not. So I'm dyeing paper with it. And I don't know if you can see it in here. There's a lot of residue and powder. So when these tea bags are gone, I'm gonna clean out that pouch too and get all that. That's all perfectly wonderful dye in there. Now, I just did this the other day with this blueberry tea, Yorkshire Toast and Jam tea, which has a bit of an orangey cast to it, and green tea, which really did nothing, and some instant coffee. That's on my Patreon video, not a process video there. It's just all the results, which were super yummy. If you want to go check that out, it's again on my Patreon page. But I did not get what I was after, which was blueberry tea dyed paper. The coffee and the black tea took over everything, and I didn't get, so I'm not putting any tea in this batch except for the blueberry tea that I have here. And it'll probably be like a magenta, a pinky sort of. I'm going to move the manuscript just in case I get crazy. I'm going to move this because I don't want to print it again. It gives me a little bit more room to work. So I'm just going to put some. So it looks like it's probably going to be pinkish. We'll see. I'm grabbing a couple, 2-3 pages at a time and putting them in here. I don't have the patience or the time to do it one by one by one. I don't know who does. More power to you if you can do it that way. I'm just grabbing whatever, squishing them down because I just want to get the color on the paper right now. I'm going to add stencils to this mix here in a little bit, but we'll come back to that. So again, I'm just grabbing, I don't know, this time it's 4 or 5 sheets and put them in, squish them around, tip it around. Sometimes I flip them. Now what I'm hoping for is that this is going to dry back a bluish, a blueberry color. We'll see. I don't know. What I like about doing it this way is the results are not predictable. And I think the people who do it one piece at a time need to have predictable in their lives, and I just don't. I prefer the unpredictable, even though I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist. There are some areas that I can let that go, and paper dyeing is one of those. Pour some more in. Be careful if you're using blueberry tea, because I got some on my counter the other day. Oh, I don't even know if you can see it. Looks like dirty spots. And I can't get that off. I even tried to bleach it. So what I'll probably end up doing is doing it more so it looks like it's on purpose rather than a stain. Oopsie. If you can't beat them, join them, right? If you can't fix it, make it look like it's there on purpose. I have no idea how many pages I grabbed. I just grabbed some out of a ream and a half of paper that I have. I just grabbed what I thought I needed, but I could get out easily. Up and down, back and forth, the other way. I like that. That's kind of what I'm after, that grayish blue. Well, we'll have to see. It's a mystery to me. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I think doing these things in the middle of a busy day, a middle of a day that has seemingly nothing but have-tos and shoulds in them, gives me a little bit of a feeling of control. Like, that's it. I'm taking a few minutes for myself. I'm going to do some things I want to do today. Even if it's smack in the middle of all the other stuff, at least part of my day was my own. Otherwise, I get very cranky when I feel like I don't have everything is, my whole life is have to. That just puts me in a foul mood, and who needs a crabby crafter in a foul mood? Yikes. Now, I've used most of the liquid in my cup. Now I've used all the liquid in my cup, but of course I'm keeping those nice wet tea bags because that's full of dye, and we're going to use those in a few minutes. So don't throw away your tea bags. Don't get ahead of yourself. And this will work. I didn't have very much luck with the green tea because it's so light, but if you're using black tea bags or any other kind of tea bag, like I said, the toast and jam was pretty orangey. You know, there's hibiscus tea, there's all different kinds of teas. So if you have one that you're not particularly fond of drinking, consider dyeing with it, doing some dye with it. Isn't that crazy? This has been sitting in pools of water and it's pristine. And that's precisely why we're going to just let this soak for a little while. I'm going to go do some of my have-tos. I'm just going to let this soak for probably a couple hours, or until I feel like I need something fun to do. Right now it almost looks like an avocado dyed color. You get that warm mauve-y, peachy, pinky from avocado peels and pits. That's always fun. That's another process entirely. You got to boil the pits and clean the peels and then boil them. But when I have avocados, I keep the peeling in the freezer until I have enough. The peeling and the pits, the skin and the pits, and I keep them in my freezer until I have enough to boil and make a dye. And I've had some wonderful results with avocado dyeing. Okay, I'm gonna let this just do its thing for a little while and get back to my to-do list, and we'll meet up again here soon. Okay, it's been about 3.5 hours. I've gotten some of my have-tos done. Look how different this blueberry tea looks. Remember how pink, magenta, reddish it was? Now it is a greenish gray. It looks very green in reality versus what I'm seeing on the camera. So we're going to go the next step. Brought it over to my stove. I'm just going to pull out a couple of pieces, and it's been sitting here for a while, so it's going to be kind of, you got to be gentle with it. Although when I lose my patience, the last thing I am is gentle, so we'll see. pull a few pages out. Now the last time when I did this, I didn't let them soak nearly this long, so they were quite a bit lighter, I think, and it was easier to manipulate because they weren't so fragile. Okay, that took bloody forever. I pulled out a few more stencils, and some of them are pretty tiny, so I'm just gonna lay them on the page and see what we get. Some of them are overlapped. Like I said, I prefer, and I like consistency, but I also don't mind random either. I like the variety of having all of those things. So I grabbed a couple more sheets, and I'm just gonna lay them on top. Got a brand new one, haven't even taken it out of the package yet. I'm gonna got my tea bags. I'm just gonna take the tea bags. I think there should be 4 here. Take the tea bags, and I'm just gonna blot, just like if you were to stencil. It may not make one bit of difference, but I gotta try it. Squeezing it out, you can see that it's nice, still pinky color. I'm having a hard time picking up these corners, so I picked them all up, and I'm gonna try and separate them that way. This does smell like blueberry tea for sure. The other one with the green tea and the jam tea and the blueberry tea and the coffee, it didn't smell so hot, but this one smells like tea, blueberry tea. You just got to take your time, which is not something I'm known for. My patience, not known for that at all. And I can still make it work, so whatever. This is a stencil I cut apart and taped back together. I'm gonna heat up some water and get a fresh tea bag and play with that while I'm stamping as well. I'll be back. I've seen people throw entire beautiful stenciled sheets, they throw them away because, oh no, they're ruined because a corner tore. My God, who has time for that? Those are also probably the people doing 1 page at a time. You know, it's wet paper. It's gonna tear and get junky, and vintage things are not pristine. Precious few vintage things are pristine. Water is hot. I'm gonna grab a tea bag. They come together in 2 packs like that. I'm just gonna get them both wet because, like I said, I don't care about quote unquote wasting this tea because it is not great tea. Which bums me out. I was so excited to have blueberry tea. Press these down. I don't know if that makes any difference or not either, but I'm gonna do it. Use my tongs because I got that water really hot. And I'm just gonna that'd be cool if that stayed pink or blue instead of going to this bluish greenish gray thing I got going on. Oh, I was gonna try in this batch some salt. Just because. I'm gonna get some McDonald's salt. My little McDonald's salt. Why? Because that makes the best marks, I think. What I use for watercolor. I use a mixture actually for watercolor, but most of it in my mix is McDonald's. So I just salted that one. That's all I did to it. This feels like a single sheet. I already broke my tea bag. So again, it's not because I'm afraid to get my hands dirty. It's because it's bloody hot water in there. I have no idea if the salt is going to do one single thing, but why not try since we're playing around with this stuff? Now, it seems like I had a lot more paper this time than I did the last time, but I'm almost out of paper and I have way more stencils, so I must have had more paper last time. I really liked how this circle one came out, and this thing up here looked like a clipboard. The hang tag for the... Now over here, this top stencil is hanging over some other papers that are underneath. So they're gonna have just a little bit of design right on the very edge. Again, that's part of the fun. You just never know what you're gonna get. I had to use 2 hands because these bottom few pages are getting really, they're soaking wet, and so they're very fragile. Take this little bit of tea that's in here, just put a little bit more of this on there. I'm just gonna put these tea bags right on here. A little bit of salt, because I already have them open. I'm gonna grab a couple more sheets of paper, stick on top of that, pour the last of the tea over it, and then we're gonna be done. So bright white sheets right on top of that. I almost want to flip the whole pile over, but I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Tea bag broken there. Okay, I'm just gonna squish it about and then put my this heavy pan on top of it, filled with stuff from my counter, just to weight it down so that those stencils have a chance to stencil, to make a difference. And then I'm just gonna let it set overnight. I will probably drain, see all this liquid that's coming out as I squeeze it? I'm gonna drain all that off. I may find a way, I might use a pipette and squirt it on this top sheet, because this top stuff is really dry. And then whatever's left over, just get off that pan so that it's not drowning in liquid. And then we'll see what happens. Stay tuned. So it's the next day, probably about 24 hours later from when we started. Before I went to bed, I put this piece of plastic down because I liked the pattern that was coming between the liquid and the glass, to see if I could get that sort of saran wrap look that sometimes happens with watercolor if the timing is right, but I don't know how that's gonna work. And then I weighed it down. I have my heavy glass pan, 3 heavy books on top, and I just let it set overnight. I'm going to put my oven on 333 just because I like the number. Paper burns at 451 degrees. Fahrenheit 451. I learned that from Ray Bradbury. Anyway, so don't worry about your paper burning up or setting fire in the oven unless you have it higher than, let's just say 400. To be safe. It's also still wet. There's still a lot of liquid in these pages. They're very damp still. And my stencils are still in here and in between all the pages, so I don't want to melt those. So I'm gonna start it, I'm gonna preheat it to the 333. When it gets to that number, I'm gonna shut the oven off, take my books off and this plastic wrap, and put the pan with the wet paper in the preheated oven that is off. It's nice and dry in there. It might steam, so sometimes I'll leave the door open just a little bit to let some of the steam out and then close it. It holds on to that heat for a really long time. And I'm just gonna let it sit in there for a few hours, probably till the end of the day, and then I'll see how dry or not they are, and we'll go from there. Okay, I have an empty pan. It's a good sign. It is a couple of days after we started. The last time we met, I believe I put the pan in the oven, in a warm oven, and let it dry. When I checked it 4 or 5 hours later, the paper was still quite wet, and so I took it out of the pan and put it on the rack, again in a preheated oven. Shut the oven off and then let them sit overnight. I even, while it was still in the pan, because it was so wet, I even turned the oven back on, left everything in the pan, in the oven, turned everything on, put the convection oven on, which has a fan. There's a fan back there, and it blows all the hot air around, and I think that it speeds things up quite a bit, especially for paper drying. So I did that for a while, and then took the paper out of the pan and put them in that preheated oven on the rack so that more air could get to them. And they are now officially crispy dry. I did pull out this was a casualty, my stencils so that they wouldn't warp. So let's see what we ended up with. Now my first thought is, holy smack, is this completely different than what we were expecting or not? Because remember what they look like when they went in. A very gray green. And now they look like normal tea-dyed paper. They don't look grayish or bluish or pinkish in any way. In fact, I have some regular tea-dyed from the other day still sitting right here, and they don't look any different, really. Color-wise, they might be a little bit darker, but color-wise, my blueberry tea ended up looking just like regular tea. And I think that that has to be in large part because of the heat. Because when I put all these in the oven that very first night, I had 2 blank pieces of white paper left, and I had mopped up all of the liquid with a paper towel. And this paper towel has a lot of texture to it. And I had literally had 2 pieces of paper still out. So I took one and I laid it down, and I put that wet with blueberry tea paper towel down on top of it. And then I put another sheet on top of that, and I just let it set overnight. And they got nice and dry, and they have that wonderful texture of the paper towel and just this crazy, very industrial Tim Holtz stamp type print. But they're gray. They're absolutely smoky gray compared to tea brown. So I'm thinking if I would have let them dry naturally, they would have dried the bluish gray versus putting them in the oven, because now they look like any other tea color. I hope that you can see the difference in color between what's here and what's here. This is very brown, and this is straight up gray. And it's the same tea. It's the same everything, except this one was air dried, and all of these were dried in the oven. No matter. I mean, I'm kind of bummed that it's not grayish blueberry. You know, I wanted blueberry paper, and I have tea-stained paper, but oh well. This is the top one that I put that piece of cellophane down underneath the glass jar, between the glass jar and the paper, and I was hoping for a saran paper effect. Really didn't get it. I got some interesting shapes. Oh no, this one says love. Oh, they're all out of order, so I can't even say. This is the Love stencil. L, crooked O, V, E. So we'll just quick go through them here to see what we ended up with. When I was pulling them out and flipping them around yesterday, this piece stuck to the bottom of the pan and it tore, blah, blah, blah. It's still perfectly usable. You know, this could find its way. It's a nice dark strip. Could find its way to a page edge or into collage. It could find its way into the garbage too. I'm not sure, depending on my mood. I also took the 5 or 6 tea bags that I had. I think I had 6, and I just threw them down at the very last minute and put them on. So that's what I think some of these darker spots are from the darker tea bags. For sure, this is where a tea bag was laying. It got real pitted too. I don't know what that's all about, unless it's the 3-dimensional stuff, the chunks of tea on that wet paper pitted it quite a bit. And for some of you who are groaning like, oh my god, they're wrinkled, oh my god, they're such a mess. A, they can be ironed if you're that uptight about it, and B, it's about vintage. Vintage stuff is not pristine. Ever. Very rarely do you find something that's very old in perfect shape. So to me, it's just part of the illusion of vintage. Here's some alphabet. A lot of texture in this one. There's a stenciled O, a stenciled R, S, or maybe that's a Q. I don't know, but they're sort of embossed looking. Some pretty patterns came out. You know, it's always nice not to have just super plain paper. Oh, I missed the stencil. You can always tell where the round ones were. They have that metal grommet in the middle, so they spin. So that's in the center of a lot of these pages. And not one of them are the same. There's even some pure white left, which is always kind of fun. I think the starkness of the white against the coffee, excuse me, the tea dye is really a cool look. It's another one where a tea bag was lying. That's where these dark spots came from. This whole back, this must have been where they were sitting. And I moved them when I flipped the papers. I moved so that there wouldn't be just 5 or 6 spots. I moved the tea bags around. So that's why that one's got the nice dark, almost dark gray mottled spot. Well, there's an alphabet that looks correct. L-M-N-O-P. L-M-N-O-P. So T-U-F-G-H. That's pretty cool. It turned out kind of nice. Very ghostly. A little bit more of a ghostly print there. The back is very plain. Another one got torn. Am I going to throw this away because it got torn? Absolutely not. I'm going to either use it as is, or if I'm making a Franken paper journal, which I love to make accordion no-sew journals out of various torn pieces of paper, this would be perfect for it. It's got a really nice dark bottom. There's some nice pattern that came through. Again, just like the last batch that I showed on the Patreon page, a lot of them are very plain, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. They are real wrinkly. I will probably get them as straight as I can and then put them underneath my stack of books that are still sitting here. Here's some proper alphabet, C, D, E, B, C, D, E. So those are up in the right direction. Plain on the back. And if that still isn't as straight as I'd like them, I have been known to iron them. They iron beautifully. I just put them on a towel right here on this little counter. I put them on a towel, my iron on a fairly low setting, but hot enough to iron it, and iron away. This stencil turned out really well. It's in the right order. You can read all the words, so I could tear these out and just use these. These are backwards. Explore. But that alphabet is right. Some of these look like flatbread. When they get those dark spots on, it looks like flatbread to me. So yeah, this took hours and hours and hours, but I did it in between other stuff. I didn't just sit here for 17 hours and do this. I quick like threw it in that pan. I quick like threw it in here layered with stencils like lasagna. I threw it in a preheated oven, and then I went to do other things, and I went to do other things. And so it takes a long time, but it's not all in one sitting, and it's not that you can't go. The only thing you have to be super, super cautious of is don't leave your oven on with paper in it. Genius. I always preheat it. I turn the timer on to remind myself to shut the oven off. I always have this light on too, to remind me that the oven is on. So I put in a lot of safeguards so that I don't leave paper in my oven with it on. And there's another nice alphabet that turned out all backwards, but very clear. Much the same. Oh, that one turned out really pretty. Look at that. Nice and dark in spots. Very cool. I like this one a lot. This one did get textured, embossed a little bit from the weight of whatever was on top of it. Nice crispy curly edges that come off easily. It's all right. They do smell good. They still smell like blueberry tea. That one really got embossed in that one spot. It's very pretty on the back, nice and dark on the back, and you can really see that pattern. There's the rest of the love thing backwards. L-O-V-E. You know, and if you don't like them, they're just background pages anyway. Fill them up with other things. A little bit of a pattern. Mostly looks like flatbread. Another bits of pattern. And I like that you see the squares. They look three-dimensional. It's got its own drop shadow. That's really cool. I really like that one. It's got the mark from the hang tag part. I like that one a lot. The further down I get, the stronger the smell of the blueberries. And plain ones. Plain ones. So I've got a super nice stack. Quite a stack. I have no idea how many pages are here. No clue. But I'll count them up and we'll do another Happy Mail giveaway. If you can guess, I have 2 extra here, so you know there's at least 2. Counting these, how many blueberry tea dyed papers that I get today, including this broken one. So that's 3 plus however many is here. I'll count these and we'll do a Happy Mail giveaway. Give me your best guess. Here are my dead little tea bags. So there were 6 of them. Anyway, give me a guess on how many blueberry tea-stained papers I got, and we'll do another Happy Mail giveaway. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this process. It's a bit tedious, but oh so worth it to be able to have a whole stack of papers. Now I have 2 stacks of papers because there's the tea dyed from the other day. Plus I have the ones I always have on hand just to grab pages, fold them in half, and make a journal. It is so fast and easy because you already have the stuff made. Do this in your spare time when you're doing other things. When you're cleaning the kitchen, throw some tea in a 13x9 pan, let them soak overnight. The next day, we start the drying process. It's not very complicated and oh so worth it. For those of you who are curious, how did my stencils hold out? They're just fine. This one got stained really bad because it was pretty white when I put it in. So I'm wondering if I put something else on this, will that blue come off? On something, I might experiment with that. But as far as warping from being in a preheated oven that was shut off and allowed to cool in there, I think that was key. They're all the same as they went in. They're just fine. And some of these are thicker than others. Like this one's a decent thick stencil, and some of them are so paper thin it's ridiculous. They feel more like paper than plastic, but they're just fine. Again, I'm not recommending you put your stencils in the oven. I'm just not. But I did, and mine are okay. Even the ones from Dollar Tree, even the super thin ones, even the heavier plastic ones, all good. So until we meet again, go love up your beastlies. Lots and lots of extra love today. Let's make that every day. Lots and lots of extra love for them every day. Mate at the lake. Out for now.